PreSonus is really happy to introduce the brand new CS18 AI Control Surface. So what is the CS18 AI? The CS18 AI is a part of the PreSonus mixing network system, which includes the control surface, the RM mixer, and Studio One DAW. Now, what makes it unique? Number one, the CS18 and the RM mixer is an integrated system that allows you to connect with a Cat5 cable, so it eliminates the heavy stage snake and expensive copper. Secondly, the thing that makes the CS18 really unique is the workflow. The StudioLive mixers have always been the easiest digital mixer to operate. So we took a lot of the same workflow from the original StudioLive console and added a lot of the new features that the CS18 RM mixers incorporate. So the next thing is true touch sensitive moving faders. A lot of the other digital mixers in this price category have moving faders, but none of them in this price range have touch sensitive moving faders. What that means is the control surface knows when your finger touches it. Your faders don't fight you. The second thing is when you're in DAW mode controlling Studio One, you actually have the ability to write automation just by touching the fader. So the next thing that makes this system unique is the fact that all of the other mixing systems in this price range will give you up to 32 channels. And at ship, the CS18 will also do up to 32 channels, but we are working on an update that's going to be coming out in the next several months that will allow you to expand the input count to up to 64 channels. So you'll have up to a 64 by 16 by 3 mixing system available literally for under $6,000. Pretty awesome. So on top of that, you also have this really compact control surface. Now, you might look at the CS18 and say, oh, I'm going to have to be banking up and down and, doing a lot of layer flipping and stuff like that. But that also brings to fact that we have this amazing, unique DCA filter workflow. And you're going to see that in a few minutes when I go into the demo that'll show you why this size control surface is amazing, because that's the thing, front of house space these days, whether you're a working band, whether you're doing corporate AV, whether you're a church, whether you're a theater, front of house space is limited, and the fact that this is a 19-inch rack mountable small control surface that'll give you control of up to 64 channels plus DAW is pretty freaking awesome. So the icing on the cake is the fact that you can not only just run a single Cat5 to the RM mixer on stage, but you can actually control the RM mixer wirelessly. Now, why is this important? Well, you get to the gig late, and instead of having to run the Cat5 cable and gaff down the cable all along for 100 feet, all you have to do is pop in the included wireless dongle in the back. You can connect to the rack mixer wirelessly and control it with faders, just as you would control it with an iPad. So the CS18 is the only control surface on the market that does that. So let's take a look at how this thing works. Okay, the first thing you'll see with the CS18 AI is a very familiar fat channel. So if you're a StudioLive user, you know what the fat channel is. It's all of your EQ and dynamics processing for any selected channel. So the same is true here. If I select a channel, like I select this tom, here's all of my settings for that tom. And just from left to right, of course, you've got the preamp volume right here for that channel. You've got the high pass filter. Here's your gate. Now, the one new thing with the CS18's fat channel is you have this edit button. So what we did is we put the most important parameters on knobs. So you've got threshold, range, attack, and release for the gate. But when I hit edit, I have some additional parameters available in the touchscreen. So I've got my key listen, but I also have a nice graphical representation of what's happening. So that's what the edit button does. So I take it out of edit, it goes back to the home screen. Same thing with the compressor. You've got an edit button, and also with the EQ. Now with the EQ, as soon as you basically touch one of these knobs, they're basically preset to be your gains. And if you want to switch from a gain to a frequency, you just hit the frequency button. Now I can switch from one frequency to another. If I want to adjust the Q, I hit the Q button, and now I can change the Q. Okay, next you have your meters modes, and this is very similar to the StudioLive consoles. So if I want to look at all my inputs, I just hit inputs. It'll show input meters, outputs, output. Gain reduction will show compressors and gates. So as you can see, there's a couple of gates that are closed here. Notice this thing too. You see these little red lights above. Just like the original StudioLive, the clip indication for the StudioLive CS18 overrides anything. So if you see these little red lights flickering, doesn't matter what screen you're on, that means the channel is clipping, and to pay attention to that. So it's pretty cool. And then of course mixes, that basically shows all of your different levels for all of the 16 mixes that are coming out. Okay, the next thing that you have down here is the stereo linking capability. So if I wanted to link two channels, just like the original StudioLive, you select a channel, hit the link button, it'll basically allow you to link adjacent channels. Then you have the assignment. So if I select a channel and I want to assign it to the left-right bus, you just select it, hit left-right. Now it's going to the left-right bus. Mono, we'll assign it to the mono bus. Again, here's the edit button. If I hit edit, now it gives me more options of different subgroups that I could assign. The CS18 hooks up to the RM mixers, which basically give you 16 what we call mixes that can be either auxes or subgroups or any combination. And once you set these up, this is where you can assign them from the control surface. Next you've got copy, load, save, which is just like on the original StudioLive. So if I like this tom EQ and I want to apply it to another tom, I just hit copy, and basically it'll blink saying, where do you want to copy this to? I select the channel I want to copy it to, hit load, boom. Now we have two identical channels. Okay, the next thing you have, of course, is save. So if I adjust the fat channel from a preset and I like that fat channel, I can save my own. And then the next button is Alt-AB, and this is again from the original StudioLive consoles, the AI versions, which allows you to have two different fat channel settings, so on a single channel. So let's say I have my snare drum here, and the drummer is going to switch from, let's say, a gated kind of stick sound, and then he's going to switch to brushes. Well, okay, when he's playing sticks, I have the gate kind of hard on, but if I hit Alt-AB, I can, let's say, turn the gate off. And now, during the show, all I have to do is hit one button and it toggles between these two fat channels. So you can have two fat channel settings on every single input of the CS18 AI and the RM mixer. Okay, next you have the talkback. This is really cool. Of course, talkback, you plug in a mic and set it up as the talkback channel, and now this engages the talkback. If I want to make an announcement through the house, I just hit the main button on, and now I can talk to the house. Last call for alcohol, that kind of a thing. So if I hit the all button, this allows me to make an announcement, and it'll not only go through the house, but through all of the auxes. But let's say if I only wanted to talk back to somebody that has in-ears on. If I hit custom, and the next button over is edit, you can see it allows me to make a custom type of group for the talkback. So let's say the guys on in-ears are mix 5, 6, 7, and 8, and now when I hit talkback, it'll only talk back to just those outputs. So really, really flexible on the talkback. The next button that you have here, group of buttons, are the solo, clear, and edit. So it's very easy here. Like if I solo a bunch of channels and I want to clear the solo, instead of having to go back and hit them one at a time, I can just hit the clear button and it'll just deselect a bunch of solo channels. Then I also have the ability, when I hit edit, to have additional parameters for the solo right there. The next button is the GEQ, so it allows you to engage the graphic EQ. You can select between different graphic EQs. If you want to, you just select the band that you want to adjust and use the value knob to adjust up or down, and it's really quite easy. Okay, the next is mute groups, and these are exactly like the console mixer. So one of the most helpful buttons in the world is this one, all on. It just mutes every input and output. But you can also set up your own custom mute groups. So to basically set up a mute group is super easy. Let's just say I wanted to have just these channels muted. I just select the ones I want, and then it just says hold to store. So I want to assign that to 8. I just hold it for a second, and then it comes on, and now you can see there's my 8. So you can have different mute groups for different applications. You can have all on, you can turn them all off. Mute groups are fun. Okay, the next is the monitor section. This allows you to basically decide what comes out of the headphones and the monitor outputs. So if I hit solo, now we're listening to the solo bus out of the headphones and the monitor out. If I want to monitor the main output of the board, I just hit main. If I want to monitor the cue, I just hit cue, and then you have an edit button as well that allows you to decide what do you want to cue. So if I want to hear, what's coming out of the wedge mix on, mix 1, I can hit mix 1 on, and now it'll, allow me to switch from, the solo bus to, queuing up one of the mixes. And this is great for running monitors or hearing what your musicians are hearing in their wedges or their in-ears. Okay, the next button here is the groups button, and this is a very important one. This is basically where you can see all of the DCA filters. So if I hit the groups button, you can see here's some DCA filters that I've created here. And if I want to look and see what is in, let's say, the drums DCA filter, if I hit drums, it'll populate them right down here on faders so I can see them. And if I wanted to add something to, let's say, I wanted to add a couple of channels to this, I just hit edit, and now it'll allow me to add whatever channels to that group that I want. You also have the ability to create new groups. So if I just hit the plus sign right here, it will basically say, okay, what channels do you want in that DCA filter? I want this one, this one, this one, this one. And then when I'm done, I can hit done, and now it's created a new filter group. I can rename it by just, selecting that, hitting edit, and going over to the name right here, and I can put in a new name. Okay, so done to get out of that. Okay, the next button is the marker button, and this is where if you're connected to Studio One, you can look and see what markers you have in Studio One. As you can see, I just have 2 markers here, but I could put markers in between each song. And the cool thing is right here underneath the marker, you see I have transport control for Studio One. I can start and stop. I can basically, jump to a marker like this, which is great. Jump back to the beginning, and it's very, very flexible. Okay. The next thing that we have is the scenes. So if I wanted to load or create a scene, I just hit the scenes button. And you can see, you can look at all your scenes right here. You can decide what you want to recall. So if I only wanted to recall, just the EQ and dynamics of a scene, I can deselect some of these parameters and just decide what do you want to recall from that particular scene. And once I, do that, I can basically hit recall. Now, if you really want to be able to recall scenes very quickly, we have this quick recall button. So what that does basically is when that's on, as soon as you touch the scene that you want, it's going to automatically recall it. So it basically just cuts out the step of hitting recall. So, a lot of times if you had multiple scenes within, a particular song, or let's say for theater application, that's a really cool kind of workflow. Okay, navigating mixes. So the CS18 AI, of course, has 16 mixes that can be configured as auxes or subgroups. Plus you have a master or main mix. So if I hit the main mix button, of course now all of these faders are basically, on the main mix. These mix buttons are basically how you access the individual aux or subgroups of the CS18. So remember, on an RM32 or an RM16, you have 16 outputs that can be either auxes or subgroups. And of course, on the RM32, all of those are analog or can be digital on the RM16. 8 of them are analog or digital, and 8 of them are digital only. Okay, so if I wanted to assign, channel 8 to aux mix, let's say 9, I select the mix on aux 9, and now I can turn up that channel just like that. Okay, now the other thing that's kind of cool is when I select any of these auxes, the faders below, of course, become your send levels, but your flex master is now your overall aux master output level. So that's really cool in addition. So you can see, as I go through the mixes, flex master is, changing based on the volume that we need. And to get out of this mode, all I have to do is hit main mix, and now I'm back on my main mix. Okay, the next thing are these fader buttons right here, and basically these decide what the faders are going to be doing. Of course, the first 4 are pretty, easy to understand. It's channels 1 through 16, 17 through 32, 33 through 48, 49 through 64. So these are the individual fader assignments basically here. Okay, the next button is the effects aux returns. So if you're in your main mix, which you hit main mix, and I hit this button next, I'm looking at basically, here's the returns of my 4 effects processors right here on faders going out of the house or out of the main mix. Next I have the talkback level, and that I can have that on a fader for the main mix. Tape in controls the tape in from the rack mixer on stage, and the digital return actually is channels 3 and 4, which are the TRS inputs on the back of the CS18. Those are on a fader as well. So if you have a local iPod at front of house, that's basically the volume for that. And then you could have, let's say, something else plugged in on stage by the rack mixer that you could have control over right here. Now, what's really cool is if I want to assign any of these things to any of the auxes, while I'm in the returns mode here, I can just go to an aux and say, okay, I want to give this guy a little bit more of effects B. I want to give this guy a little bit less of effects A. I want to throw a little bit of iPod over into this because this guy's singing with the iPod, some tracks. So you have all of those. So, and again, to go back to the main mix, you just go like this. The next button is the Mix Masters button, and basically what this does is it shows all of your aux outputs or subgroup outputs, so you have 16 of them total on faders. So if I can, I have a couple of them linked here, you can see, and if I need to turn them up or down, I can, turn the whole mix up or down. I can also mute from this screen as well. Okay, the next button is the Group Masters button, and in my opinion, it is the most awesome button on the CS18 AI. So let me tell you why. First of all, let's go back into the layers for a second. Like if I go to channels 1 through 16 and, I'm trying to mix 16 channels and then, something's happening on, channel 30 that I need to get to, and now I got to flip over to here, and now I got to flip back, and you're doing a lot of flipping. Okay, well, what the Group Masters button does is it allows you to set up a custom layer of exactly what you want to see and assign it to a fader. So basically, I can have all of my drums on one fader. So if I want to turn the drums down, I can turn them down. If I want to, let's say the toms are too loud and I want to adjust the toms, instead of having to go back into a layer, I just select the drum group. It spills out all of my drums. I can turn the toms down, hit Group Masters, I'm back to mixing the show. Okay? The other thing that's cool about this Group Masters layer is that I can have, let's say, my effect sends on individual faders. And in addition to that, I could have, let's say, I could create one that has all of my effects on just one. So you can have channels just like the DCA filters in UC Surface. It's exactly the same thing. You can have multiple channels and multiple groups. So check out the kick for a second. So you can see it has kick, and I've got the kick on one fader, but if I spill out the kick, if I hit select, you can actually see I've got 2 channels for the kick. I have an inside mic and an outside mic. Okay, so if I want to change the ratio of those, I can do that and then go right back into mixing, and I can have an overall volume of the kick. So the Group Masters is really where you're going to spend most of your time, and you can see 16 basically things at the same time. Let's say you need more than 16 Group Masters. Well, all you have to do is hit the Shift button and you can see another layer of Group Masters comes up right there. Now here's what's really sweet about the Group Masters as well is, okay, when I'm in the main mix, I'm adjusting my Group Masters, basically to the house. So, I want to turn up the guitars, great. But let's say, a musician on stage needs just more guitars. Okay, all I have to do is select an aux mix while I'm in Group Masters mode, and now I'm basically adjusting the auxes with the Group Masters. So it's like, okay, I want to turn down the drums. Instead of having to turn down 8 channels, I just turn down 1 because I'm in Group Masters. Okay, notice if I'm in layers, now if I wanted to turn down the drums, I'd have to turn down 8 things. Okay, so that's why the Group Masters are so awesome. It basically allows you to configure exactly what you want to see and have it right there. So that's why the CS18 with 16 faders is way more powerful than most digital consoles. And the last button is the DAW button. Now this is where you get control over Studio One straight from the CS18. Now I've got my computer hooked up to an RM32 right now using FireWire, and right from the surface of the CS18, I can control, the transport, so I can hit play, stop, and like I showed the markers, I can do that. But as soon as I hit DAW, now it takes me out of controlling the RM mixer, and now I'm controlling Studio One. So what's really great about this is, okay, let's say I recorded a song in Studio One, and I want to play back some backing tracks. Okay, if I can look at channels 1 through 16, and you can see, okay, I've got all the faders down on my drums because let's say I've got a drummer on stage. I don't need drums coming back through the mixer. But as you can see, I can pick and choose, basically certain things that I want to come back digitally into the CS18 so I can play along with some backing tracks. So here's some synths and some extra guitars. Here's a little harpsichord. On this third layer, which I've got 43 tracks on this. I might want some additional background vocals. And the beauty of this is that if I go out of DAW mode and go to the last 2 channels of Studio One, you can the CS18 on channels 31 and 32. I actually have these are set as digital returns coming from the computer. So I've got a 2 mix coming from Studio One up on faders, and I also have a click track which I can assign to anybody's auxes on stage. But as soon as I go to DAW, now I'm controlling that 2 mix that's coming back. So I had 43 tracks, and I can decide what I want and the ratio of what I want. And in addition to controlling just the levels of those channels, I can also control the plugins. So if I hit the Effects Insert Sends button, now you can see on a particular channel, I can pop open a plugin, and as soon as I select it here, it also opens it up in Studio One, and I can adjust it. And the beauty is I can not only control Studio One plugins, but if I have third-party plugins like Waves or Steven Slate plugins, all of those will show up here as well, and I can assign the controls of those plugins to these knobs, and it's really, really cool. We'll have more videos that go more into detail on this. But the DAW button is really amazing because, in today's modern kind of production environment, live production, bands are playing along with backing tracks. I mean, the benefit is great because, I can add some stuff that I used on my record. I might have had a string section on my record, and of course I'm not going to bring a string section out on the gig with me. So, now I can have Studio One, and I can hook it up to the RM mixer, and now I have full control over it from front of house. And I can bring up those tracks. I can adjust the volume. Let's say I'm using this in a church application, and if you're a worship leader, you've gotten this call at an hour before the downbeat. The bass player calls and says, "Oh man, I got in a wreck, dude. My car won't start," etc., etc. Well, I just go to the bass player's channel here and I turn them up, and now we have a bass player. Okay, so this is a really, really cool way of not only adding additional things to your live track-wise. The other thing that you can do is you can actually have the return of plugins coming back on faders as well and control those directly from the CS18. Okay, so that was a quick overview of the CS18 AI. We're going to have a lot more detailed videos coming out, so you can find those at PreSonus.com or our YouTube channel or your My PreSonus account. So thanks a lot for watching.